Hi guys, welcome to another lecture discussion, whatever you guys are calling these in the series where we're discussing the namesake. Um, if you're following me on Instagram, there's a whole thing I'm trying to sprout out about. Go and show some support. Although showing support won't matter because I know there might be a lot of more people waiting to be seated there, and all of that stuff. And also, internal team support really matters, you know what I mean? I know this is about the namesake, but just saying, just for the sake of being a good CEO, you can't be a good CEO. You know what I mean? Because there are lots of people even in the team, right? Um, Kanza, Hassan, those are the two names that I remember on the top of my head. So there are those people, right? It's supposed to be their support. Then Tanya. So let's see. But I'm still not saying that I'm stopping to do this. It's okay, I guess, to be the odd one out in terms of specifically the CEOs that we may have seen from the Pakistani region, I guess. I'll read ahead. Sometimes, Ashima and Alan's wife, Judy, stand side by side in the yard, clipping clothes to the line. Judy always wears blue jeans, torn up into shorts. Once summer comes, and a necklace of small seashells around her throat. Oh, we had already read this part. Um, a red cotton scarf over her stringy yellow hair, and the same texture and shade as her daughter's is always tied at the back of her neck. She works for a women's health collective in Somerville a few days a week. When she learned of Ashima's pregnancy, she approved of Ashima's decision to breastfeed, but had been disappointed to learn that Ashima was going to put herself in the hands of the medical establishment for her child's delivery. Judy's daughters were born at home with the help of midwives at the collective. Um, for this specific part, I'd say um, this is an important insight that because I said that let's reflect upon the the writing style by Champalari, right? So if you're talking about the writing style of Champalari, then this is an important insight that she's weaved into the bigger narrative, because this was not just a practice, but this was a thing, like this was a belief back in those times. Now also a lot of people do have this belief, but this was a more stauncher belief because people would go for organic alternatives. People were more about the natural ways, specifically when it comes to gynae and stuff like that. So back then, this insight is something that's that's beautifully weaved in the namesake narrative, because it's important to understand that on a larger scale in the US, people back then, the more educated community was about the fact that no, we don't want to admit ourselves in, not the more educated community, conserve I don't know if no conservative would be a wrong term, but basically when I was reading it for the first time, I learned that that a major part of uh, people who were US born in that time were people um, who would like to opt for midwives and stuff like that, instead of putting themselves in the hands of medical establishment. Also, other than the fact that people would opt for organic ways and natural whatever, there were a lot of myths around the medical establishment, obviously. When I say there were a lot of myths, I mean myths from things like they give you something after which you might have a problem with having your next child, to a lot more. So those kind of myths were regulated around, and because of which, and also, for example, because a lot of people tend to die during childbirth, right? So there was also this kind of a myth that was really popular that with medical establishment, that's easier to happen. Hence, um, on a larger scale, people would opt for for personal midwives or private whatever instead of this uh, instead of going to a medical establishment. But just I know I was probably a bit stuck explaining that. Excuse me. But just for a quick check, um, keep in mind that I'm only elaborating upon it because of the fact that if you look at the namesake holistically, and because we already spoke about writing style of Jhampalari and all of that in the beginning, it's very important to understand that that this is the writing style that's praised on a larger scale, where these are very small insights by Lahari, um, which are integrated in so well. Because this is important to explain you the times back then. And also, see how she's integrated that. She hasn't integrated the insight in a very medical terminology or anything like that. She's integrated it just as just as a mention of because obviously for anybody watching these videos, they can go on YouTube or something like that or some other channel and probably just watch the namesake itself, right, or read the namesake itself. So I'd just say that when you're when you're listening to these lectures, I hope that the fact that that I'm specifically trying to highlight the parts which do stand out and can help you reflect upon your own writing style and also what makes the namesake stand out, right? Because Lyri also went on to win a lot of awards, as in Pulitzer Prize awards and all of that stuff. So keep that part in mind. That these are the reasons. Like for example, integration of insights this way, because this is an important insight that Lahiri could have mentioned in any other way. She specifically mentioned this insight this way because of the fact that because of the fact that in a story it's very easy, not in a story but in any piece of writing, it's really easy to mention just about any additional stuff, like just write it on the sides. But if you carefully read through this piece, it's not mentioned as like a fact or a figure or something like that. It's mentioned as just part of the bigger narrative, right? That okay, there is a neighbor who's careful about this stuff. As simple as that. Judy's daughters were born at home with the help of midwives at the collective. Some nights, Judy and Alan go out, leaving Amber and Clover unsupervised at home. Only once, when Clover had cold, did they ask Ashima if she could check in on them. Ashima remembers their apartment with abiding horror. Also, just see how the lifestyles are being compared, right? Because Ashima and Ashok would never leave their children alone, specifically on neighbors like that. Like, their child is also probably younger, but also they don't have that whole thing, right, where they would want to leave their child back home and go clubbing or anything like that, because they're South Asians at heart. um, so they hold different values, beliefs, which is visible in their lifestyle too. um, And now just carefully listen to the things that kind of disturb Ashima in that apartment. If you watch the movie is great, but obviously these are details that cannot be integrated like that in the movie. Just beyond the ceiling, yet so different from her own, piles everywhere, piles of books and papers, piles of dirty plates on the kitchen counter, ashtrays the size of serving plates heaped with crushed out cigarettes. The girls slept together on a bed piled with clothes, sitting momentarily on the edge of Alan and Judy's mattress. She had cried out, falling clumsily backward, startled to discover that it was filled with water, instead of cereal and tea bags. There were whiskey and wine bottles on top of the refrigerator, most of them nearly empty. Just standing there had made Ashima feel drunk. Because she's a South Asian woman who does not drink, who does not she's also a very pious Hindu woman, right? Beyond being a South Asian woman, she's also a very pious Hindu woman. So she does not engage in these vices. So now when she's standing close to these bottles in an apartment, it's something that makes her feel sick. Because for someone who does not engage in such vices at all, them just smelling alcohol is a big thing, right? For example, when people have their first sip of alcohol and before they have it, when what can I say? When the whiff of it hits their heads, it does makes them all dizzy and stuff like that, right? For anyone who may have had a drink for the first time in their life, even before you take a sip, it's the whiff of that drink that almost gives you that buzz, which may have happened after you would have had a sip, right? That feeling, because right now she's not had a sip or anything. She's just in an apartment where the kitchen is filled with alcohol bottles, so it smells like a wine shop of sorts probably, and that makes her sick, because it's like she's not drinking it, but even when you visit, for example, a wine shop for the first time, it's not like all the bottles are open and people are drinking or anything. Or when you pass by when you pass by a wine shop, it is the whiff of that alcohol, right? That just makes you look on the side and you're like, what just happened? So it's that feeling that she's experiencing in the apartment because it's a closed space. I think that's about it for this video. I know in this one I was probably stammering a lot in explaining things properly, but yeah, I will try to be more fluent with the stuff, and I hope that some of these videos are actually making the right sense, and not just the right sense, but also they're able to add any value to what I'm not saying that I am adding value to the book at all, but I hope they're adding value to the fact that you're watching these videos instead of reading the book on your own. But I still expect that everyone has already read the book once on their own. If you want, you can also go and watch the movie after having read the book, because it just helps you understand visuals and stuff like that better.